What's up everybody, Soul here with another Sword of Convallaria video, and today we will be discussing how to zone and control your enemies in combat. This applies mostly to PvE, but certainly can be beneficial to a smaller extent in PvP, as your opponents generally are smarter. But anyways, I'm going to do that by explaining a few things. I'm going to explain terrain, objects, positioning, and then last of all, blink tanks and how they can be beneficial to you. And of course, you're not limited to blink tanks. However, I think utilizing these strategies to zone and control enemies, you can absolutely utilize units as tanks that weren't initially intended to be tanks per se. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Now, in order to zone and control your enemies, first you have to be able to understand them. And so right here, we're testing our enemies and trying to learn exactly what they prioritize, where, when, and how they act. And so I'm going to give you a couple examples to illustrate how the AI acts and behaves, and so that you're able to better control and zone them in battle. First, we want to acknowledge that unit power doesn't matter. Notice here as the Knighted Guard attacks the recruited assassin on the left. However, when we switch the roles with Rowea on the left, he still prefers her, even though she is notably stronger than the recruited assassin. As you can see here, Rowea is 2900 power and some of the best equipment at the highest level with really good engravings, whereas the recruited assassin has low power at 2000 with inferior equipment in every way. So all we're really left to glean from this is that the AI wants to move left and doesn't care about a unit's power at all. Next, we're going to show here that given the same neutral options, the AI simply goes for the closest target, not prioritizing the side attack or to go for the stronger unit or to even go for the left. It just simply goes for the closest unit available. Something that can be seen right here again, recruited assassins facing Knighted Guard, whereas Rowea is facing the opposite way, giving Knighted Guard a back attack, but he simply wants to hit what's closest. In this clip right here, you can see Rowea is giving her flank and the recruited assassin is giving his back, and the Knighted Guard still ignores the weaker unit's back attack bonus damage and prefers to go for Rowea's flank simply because she's left. Now we can see here that the Knighted Guard does prioritize typing, and so he ignores a Watcher, a Breaker, and a Defender to prioritize hitting the Seeker where he has the type advantage. Now here we can see with the opposing type in front of them and even to the left, the Knighted Guard will ignore them. We're trying to stay away from their counter type and will target the neutral type that appears to be maybe the closest or closest to the left. So what did we learn? We learned that the AI prefers type over everything. It will ignore type disadvantages and will prioritize type advantages. Past that, it doesn't acknowledge back or flank attacks. It only acknowledges the closest target and possibly targets to the left. So now that we understand how the AI works, let's start talking about how we can control it to better suit our game. The first thing we can do to manipulate this is take advantage of terrain. And there are a couple ways in which you can affect terrain. Let's take a look at what those are. First, we'll cover liquor. It emits a fragrance of wine and inflicts liquor on characters passing or staying for 2 turns. So just treading through it inflicts this. The tile can be ignited by fire. Walking on it consumes an additional 0.5 movement per tile. Now, liquor is a great debuff on its own because it reduces speed by 150 and your movement by 1 tile and magic defense by 40%. That movement by 1 tile is huge. It's really going to stop those enemies from moving as much because it just simply takes 1 tile of movement away from them, and then it costs them extra movement to move through it. Now, liquor is something we get from Wild Bear casting, and thanks to Ida, it might not be accessible to everybody. Next, we'll go over burning. Burning ground inflicts scorch on characters passing or staying for 2 turns. Walking on it consumes an additional 0.5 movement per tile. That movement per tile reduction is what makes it effective for zoning. It's great to do some extra damage to opponents while they're trying to move through it, and it really will help you crowd control. However, that movement down is what you're primarily worried about when zoning and controlling your opponents. A great source of this is Burning Grenade, which is given to us via Nightingale, which is a phenomenal unit for crowd control and zoning. Next, we'll talk about Ice Terrain, which is Frosty Tile. A character knocked back on frosty ground will continue to slide until it reaches the edge of the frosty ground, then get knocked back. That's massive. Walking on it consumes an additional 1 movement per tile. This is a phenomenal way to zone and control enemies because of that. Obviously, they're not able to move as much on it. It's a whole 1 extra movement to move across these tiles unless they have the ability to negate that. However, that 1 full movement cost per tile to move for units that don't have that immunity is very powerful. A great example of this can be seen with Ice Age. This is a huge 3x3 AoE that reduces speed and movement, and this is on Papal Ice Priest. This is a phenomenal way to zone and control your enemies right here. By utilizing terrain, you're able to more effectively control how units move and force them into the units that you desire or the paths that you desire. One of these 3 terrains works. You can use a combination as you see on the screen right here. Either or, it doesn't matter. Utilize them to your advantage the way that you want to. Next, let's talk about objects. We'll just go over it really quickly. Objects are phenomenal for helping to zone and control enemies because they are obviously objects that stand in the way of their progress. If an enemy can't hit your character, they will target an object that's in the way. Objects take extra movement to either go around or to go over, so to be able to place down an object in front of them is huge. A great example of this is Ida's Fortification, another great Ida ability. As you can see in the video right here, we're jumping on and off these objects and we're using them to gain a high ground advantage. However, I place those down too to make sure enemies have a harder time getting around into my backline units that I'm trying to protect. Next, let's talk about positioning. Fortunately, due to our testing earlier, we know exactly what to do for positioning. You just put your unit up front that you want to take the hits, keep your other units out of the way, where they're either the second option or they're just completely out of reach, using the different zone of effects with objects and terrain that we discussed earlier. As you can see here, we have the recruited assassin placed up front with the other units just out of reach, and utilizing objects and terrain, we're able to guide our opponents directly into him without any issue whatsoever. Next, let's move into the last portion of the video, discussing blink tanking. Zoning and controlling your opponents is very useful within itself. However, forcing them forward into tanks that just don't ever take damage and or possibly reducing any damage taken is invaluable. There are times where enemies just do so much damage, they one-shot your units, or it just seems completely unreasonable, especially in those challenge levels. In order to get past them, Voyage of Discovery is coming to mind for me. Regardless, this is a way to circumvent some of that and to prevent them from one-shotting your units and quickly killing your whole team by using a little ingenuity and creativity. One great example of a tank that can pull this off is on screen right now, Recruited Assassin. This guy is absolutely invaluable in his ability to use fleeted footwork in order to create blinks or dodges, if you will, and to be able to hook and pull enemies into him. He can control where opponents are and force them into him, and he even gets a counterattack when being hit. Another 2 great options are SP Rowea and Agatha. Both these units get access to a blink in several different ways through different abilities and make for great blink tanking units. And so yeah, this is my take on zoning and controlling your opponents in battle. This is once again primarily used in PvE. It can have some use in PvP, though very limited because obviously your opponents are much more intelligent. Regardless, I'm not criticizing the AI, but all AI is predictable. And I just want that to be seen and recognized here. And this should help people who maybe are new to the game or haven't cleared some of the top content and don't have some of the best equipment or characters to still get through content by completely mitigating the amount of damage they take altogether. As you're seeing right here in this video, Recruited Assassin is in complete control. I have all the extra effects of zoning through the terrain effects. Ida is a character not everybody has. Nightingale is a character that most people would have. And then of course I've got Butterfly there, able to move people around through her abilities. This is a very free to play friendly concept. It allows you to utilize and maximize whoever you have and to blink tank with a character that everybody should have access to. Hopefully this will help you in your gameplay and enable you to be more successful in any way, shape, form, and fashion. I think zoning and controlling can be an asset to any player at any point in the game. It definitely just makes things easier when you're able to completely mitigate the damage that's done to you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please drop me a like and a subscribe. A huge shout out to my Patreon members. I deeply appreciate you and allowing me to create this content and to make the pools and the guides and everything else. If you'd like to join our Patreon, the link is down below, as well as a link to our Discord. I'd urge you to come join us in the conversation and discussion about the game as we talk about the various different things like metas and so on and so forth. And yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I hope this guide helped you. See you next time. Bye.